Hello, this is Cho of the Shiny Colors Discord. Welcome to another episode of The Shiny Review. Today we've got 3 new cards to talk about. The new Produce SSR for Haruki, Support SSR for Juri, and Support SSR for Kaho. Keep in mind that Haruki and Juri are part of Twilight's collection, meaning that they'll be available in future Twilight banners at an off rate. So if you want your chance to spark either of these 2 cards or have them at the increased SSR rate, now is really your only chance to do so. As for Kaho, she is part of a special PR campaign, and so her card will be gone by the end of the month. And as far as we know, there is no sign that the PR cards will be returning anytime soon. So if you want this Kaho, now is realistically your only time to do so, but at least you have a couple weeks to get the character. Starting things off, we have Haruki. As we continue down the line of Twilight cards, we have Haruki, the first of Cosmetic to get the Twilight treatment, and is a surprisingly quick turnaround, all things considered. She's a pure dance unit who shares the same mechanics as Luca, the ability to create new appeals that have extremely powerful effects. She also has the ability to slow things down temporarily, and packs quite a handful of strong Cosmetic passives to elevate the team to new heights. The best part about Haruki being a flexible card in terms of being a center or dance position unit is that you can choose either path to avoid overlapping her role with Luca 2. Do keep in mind that if you're using both Luca 2 and Twilight Haruki's live skill generations, you might clog up the deck without additional mulligans. Luckily, Haruki's best appeal grants you 2 mulligans to help thumb through your pile that much faster. She's an extremely strong piece, and maybe the best piece Cosmetic has so far. Her roles are center, maybe. We'll argue as to why she doesn't necessarily need to be the center, but she can be one. She can attack all, she has access to mulligan, and she has live skill generation. I highly recommend pulling for this Haruki, especially if you are trying to build a Cosmetic team. Haruki's initial skill is a dance 3.5 appeal that grants you 1 mulligan, and the link appeal is a dance 60% buff for 3 turns. If you're unfamiliar, a mulligan is the ability to send a card from your current roster of... If you're unfamiliar with the term mulligan, it comes from card games like Magic the Gathering, where you can take cards from your hand and put them back in the deck. In this case, what you're doing is taking cards from your hand, the appeals that you draw per turn, you can throw one away and get a new one. That's your mulligan. So, when you use her appeal, you get the ability to throw away 1 card from your hand that you don't need. Her 1-star appeal is a dance 5.0 that grants 1 mulligan and also generates the Triple Plus appeal. Said Triple Plus appeal is a dance 5.0 to all judges and duets randomly with Cosmetic, and has a plus appeal buff that requires 3 or more Cosmetic characters in your skill history for a dance 60% buff for 4 turns. The plus appeal on her 1-star skill is a judge interest 70% down that requires the full Cosmetic lineup and for it to be turn 3 or earlier. Her 4-star appeal is a dance 4.5 to all judges that grants 2 mulligans, creates the Quad Plus appeal, and links into a dance 1.0. The Quad Plus appeal is a dance 5.5 to all judges, raises your dance by 160% for 4 turns, duets randomly with Cosmetic, and has a plus appeal which requires 3 or more Cosmetic in the skill history for a dance 2.0 appeal. Just like with Luca 2, Haruki 2 can create appeals that end up in your deck of appeals, and must be drawn into after the generation happens. These are the core to Haruki's playstyle, and almost certainly means that either Hana's limited Produce SSR will have big effects when tossed away through a mulligan, or will be like Haruki's final appeal that grants 2 extra mulligans to help burn through your deck as soon as possible. As for her passives, Haruki's 1-star passive is a dance 50% up if it's turn 2 or earlier. It has a 30% chance to activate once, and this comes with a dance plus 150 uncap. Her 2-star passive is a dance 130% up that just requires the full Cosmetic lineup. That means that Hana, Haruki, and Luca have to all be on the stage at the same time. This has a 30% chance to activate once, and this comes with a vocal dance visual combined plus 100 uncap. Her 3-star passive is a dance of 170% up if you have 4 or more Cosmetic members in your skill history, and has a 30% chance to activate twice. This comes also with a mental plus 200 uncap. Finally, her Rainbow passive comes with a vocal dance visual plus 100 uncap, and her memory appeal when maxed out is a dance 2.5 that links into a dance 3.0 appeal. Said Rainbow passive is a dance 220% up and requires the full Cometic lineup and for it to be turn 4 or later. It has a 30% chance to activate twice and is limited to once per turn. Haruki continues to have this current wave of the Twilight passive, which is a memory gauge gain plus 5% to all members, as well as a plus 3 to appeal strength to all members. It's hard to say if this will be the last of this wave of Twilight passives or not, but it bears repeating how good this effect is. Most teams have trouble with memory gauge consistency, especially if they need it for sure on turn 3 or especially on turn 4. Being able to amplify the gain on all 5 members per copy of this effect is hard to understate. Even if you do not intend on producing Haruki for her merits on Cometic, say you're not actually trying to build a Cometic team but happen to get this Haruki, you can use her as the final card when creating step know-how in order to ideally pass this effect onto the book, and let your proper team inherit this skill in order to make their effectiveness that much higher. Now, Twilight's collection has not gotten any less expensive, so it's fair to consider that many of you may have Haruki at only 0 star or 1 star. 1-star Haruki is very much a playable card, giving you access to Dance Cometic's game plan in the form of live skill generation, and can get the ball rolling for future teams. 2-star offers an insanely consistent passive for your Cometic lineup that will take you fairly far as well. Any number of copies past the first will greatly improve how well this Haruki feels to produce, and especially makes her contributions in Fest feel that much greater. Once you get Haruki to 4 stars, she absolutely becomes the dance position card for Dance Cometic because of her AoE appeal that can create another AoE appeal. It means that all of her high stats are going to play into really high damage into all the judges consistently, and that is something you absolutely want to have as your dance position, as opposed to having her as the center. So, until you get her to 4 star, consider running her as a center, but once you do get her to 4, move her over to the dance position. For the support recommendations, the MVP is Colorful Chiyuki alongside cards like Umastro Tenka and Hashiru/Hell Training Amana. The Colorful Chiyuki engine paired with Umastro Tenka continues to be one of the best things dance teams can be doing currently. I can't imagine that this will last if Dance Cometic is properly supported in the coming months, so take this as a good build for now, but be very mindful of future limited Cometic supports, especially if they're dance. This encapsulates the vibe of dance good stuff, in contrast to vocal good stuff. Cards like Twilight Yuika and Twilight Natsuha are just strong additions to any dance team. Daikichi Kogane continues to be a very powerful option for dance teams, and cards like the permanent SSR Madoka are still very good because of her masteries, making it that much easier to generate and build stronger characters. Finally, the grades. Haruki as a center, I think, earns an A. So, the main thing about Haruki's memory appeal over a card like Luca 2 is that Luca 2 is a lower base but much higher ceiling when you consider that Luca's appeals also buff her appeal strength, which is factored into her memory appeal. So while Haruki's 5.5 in total is clearly stronger than Luca's 5.0, if you are able to do the proper sequence of Luca appeals, you'll actually have an 8.0 memory appeal on Luca, which is significantly stronger. This is certainly playable for Cometic, but is a safer choice over Luca 2 if you lack the duplicates of Haruki to make her pop off in the dance position. As a unit, I think she's anywhere from an S+ to SS-. Haruki as a card is insanely strong for what Dance Cometic wants to do currently. She establishes a defensive presence with her 4-star appeal, grants multiple mulligans to cash in for either her own or Luca's generated appeals, and doesn't disrupt the pace that Luca 2 wants to establish with her interest lock. The biggest task will be ideally not clogging the deck with too many generated appeals, but this Haruki is a real cornerstone for the team, and I think makes Dance Cometic a very much playable team now that they have 2 significantly stronger cards in this particular format. Next up then we have Jury. This time the Twilight support is Jury, a vocal card that promotes heavy vocal and SP gain, along with Room Mastery to speed up the leveling process in Step. She's a card that practically demands to be maxed in terms of support skill efficiency, but she's a comfortable enough card at 1 star with access to all of her SP Mastery and her highest odds of stamina support. Her passives are killer for Vocal Hokura, supplementing both their attention up and duet playstyles, and add some needed durability to their overall build in her uncaps. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Rest Boost, and Stamina support. Since she is a Twilight card, her Idol's Bond goes up to level 15 as opposed to level 10. She has 5 unique support skills, Unit Mastery SP reaching plus 10 at level 65, Vocal Stay Mastery reaching plus 5 at level 80, Unit Mastery Vocal Limit Up reaching plus 4 at level 70, Vocal Mastery Stamina reaching plus 6 at level 80, and Room Mastery reaching plus 5 at level 80. Her support appeal does scale starting at a Vocal 3.0 out of the box, becoming a Vocal 3.1 with a 5% vocal buff for 3 turns by level 60, increasing upwards to a Vocal 3.5 appeal with a 25% vocal buff for 3 turns by level 80. Her TFD idea is Vocal, her Insight token for Grad is Dance, and her proficiency and landing point is in SP. Juri's initial passive at 0 stars is a Vocal 60% up, which requires it to be turn 3 or earlier. It has a 20% chance to activate twice, and it comes with a Vocal plus 50 uncap. Her 1-star appeal is a Vocal 1.5 that follows up with a Vocal 0.4 to 2.0 appeal to all judges that scales based on how many characters are in your skill history. The more characters in that skill history, the higher the overall damage will do. This also comes with a Vocal plus 50 uncap. The 2-star passive is a Vocal 110% up if it's turn 3 or later, and has a 20% chance to activate twice, and comes with a Vocal plus 50 uncap. Her 3-star appeal is a Vocal 2.0 that follows up with a Vocal 0.6 to 3.0 to all judges, effect up based on how many cards are in your skill history, like before, and also comes with a Vocal 50% buff for 3 turns, and a Vocal Mental plus 75 uncap. Her Rainbow passive at 4 stars is a Vocal 200% up and Attention 100% up that requires the full Hokago lineup and for it to be turn 4 or later. It has a 20% chance to activate once and is limited to once per turn. This also comes with, finally, a Vocal Mental plus 75 uncap. Juri's overall grades range from a B to a double S. The same song and dance as every Twilight support. Practically busted to all hell when maxed out, but also extremely underwhelming in exactly 1 copy. A 2-star Juri goes a long way to improving the overall consistency of Vocal Hokura, and 4-star means they get easily one of their best finisher passives for a memory appeal. She's easily the best card Vocal Hokura has now by a wide margin, and will fit in quite nicely with the other Vocal Hokura supports that have been gathering a bit of dust due to previously complicated ways to use them being made much easier with newer cards. And on that note, we have our next support, which is Kaho. As part of the PR campaign that players got to vote on, our second SSR of the batch is Kaho, featured alongside Fuyuko and Mei to create a Neo Stray Light. Sorry, Asahi. This pure vocal support is not too dissimilar to the visual Amana released last month, meaning there's a similar amount of positives and negatives tied to the card. She has a good amount of bow stat building, along with stamina for the vocal room, strong passives for teams that can use either of these characters, and a great positional passive. She's certainly worth checking out, if able. Her support skills are Idol's Bond, Promise Recovery, and Rest Boost, and she has 4 unique support skills. Vocal Mastery Vocal reaching plus 15 at level 75, Tension Mastery Vocal Limit Up reaching plus 4 at level 80, Vocal Stay Mastery reaching plus 5 at level 80, Vocal Mastery Stamina reaching plus 5 at level 80. Her support appeal does scale, starting at a Vocal 3.0 by level 60, going up to a Vocal 3.5 at level 80. Her TFD idea, Insight token for Grad, and Proficiency and Landing Point are all in Vocal. Remember, this card is limited. You only have a couple of weeks to pull for this card before it disappears for seemingly good. So, if you like Kaho, Fuyuko, or Mei, and want some support for your Vocal Hokura or Vocal Stray Light teams, now's your real only chance to pull for the card. Kaho's initial appeal is a Vocal 2.5 that doubles your current Vocal Up status and grants a Vocal 20% buff for 4 turns. Remember that the doubling up or fortify effect only applies to buffs that you already had before appealing. So the 20% buff that she grants herself is not fortified by her own effect, as they apply essentially at a different time. What this does mean is that if you already have a buff, say a Vocal 50%, this will improve it to a 100% until that buff runs out. Her 1-star passive is a Vocal 50% up if it's turn 3 or earlier and has a 20% chance to activate 3 times. Her 2-star passive is a Vocal 100% up and Memory Gauge 5% up that requires either Kaho, Fuyuko, or Mei on your team, and it has a 30% chance to activate twice. As long as you have one of those characters, this passive can activate. At 3 stars, she gets 2 separate Vocal plus 50 uncaps, and her 4-star appeal is a Vocal 3.5 that doubles your current Vocal Up status and grants a Vocal 60% buff for 4 turns. She also has a 4-star passive, a Vocal 150% up that requires you to be in the vocal position and has a 30% chance to activate twice. This comes with a Vocal plus 100 uncapped. Kaho earns anywhere from an A+ to an S-. I think this card is pretty good. Kaho certainly sports a lot of competition with 4 separate vocal supports in the span of 1 whole year. And there's no break in there either. All 4 of the cards she's gotten in the last year have been vocal. Her masteries are slightly weaker than the last limited Kaho, Alert, in some small ways, but is also better in other ways, such as the higher vocal stay mastery, which adds to her consistency. The immediate synergy this card has with Vocal Stray Light thanks to buff fortification is really neat, and the stronger passives over the last limited Kaho should give this card some amount of playtime in any team that offers to use Kaho, Mei, or Fuyuko. So perhaps if you're playing a smaller vocal team and can fit one of these 3 characters on there just arbitrarily, this card can still help you out, which is really nice. I moderately to highly recommend pulling for this card, depending on if you are playing Vocal Hokuda, Vocal Stray Light, or playing a team that includes one of these 3 characters and favors the vocal stat. So, that will do it for the video today. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Next time we'll be talking about whatever banner comes next, so let's look forward to it together. Also, as of the day of recording, we found out a little bit more about the new branch that's going to be starting at some point here, Hatsuboshi Gakuen, the newest branch for Idolmaster. There's been some pretty interesting developments with that in regards to some of the staffing, both on the music and writing side, so I'm kind of mixed on the overall reveal of it, but maybe we'll see how well this pans out. I'm certainly looking forward to it in some capacity, maybe you are too. Till the next one, I've been Cho, thank you for watching, have a wonderful rest of your day.